Have you ever caught yourself holding back right at the moment when you were about to shine? Maybe you had the chance to speak up in a meeting, share a bold idea, or step onto a stage, and instead, you stayed silent, shrinking into the background. It wasn't fear of failure that stopped you. It was something stranger, almost like fear of your own strength. What if people noticed you were more capable than you've let on? What if success brought new expectations, new responsibilities, or even envy from others? This quiet resistance isn't unusual. In fact, it is one of the most hidden and powerful forces in our psychology. And today, we're going to explore why it's not just our weaknesses we fear, but our unrealized strengths, the parts of ourselves Carl Jung called the shadow. When most people hear the word shadow, they think of flaws, shame, and repressed impulses. Jung certainly included these in the concept, but what often gets overlooked is that the shadow is also made up of our brightest potential. The talents, desires, and passions we bury because they feel too disruptive, too risky, or too big for the life we currently live. In other words, the shadow doesn't just hold what we dislike about ourselves. It also hides what we secretly admire but cannot yet accept. Imagine locking away a treasure chest because you're afraid of what will happen if you open it. That's what many of us do with our potential. Why do we do this? Part of the answer lies in how the human brain is wired. We are social creatures finely attuned to belonging. From childhood, we learn what traits get rewarded and which ones provoke criticism or rejection. A child who speaks too confidently may be told, "Don't brag." A teenager who shows unusual creativity might hear, "Be realistic." Over time, the message sinks in. Stay small, stay safe, don't stand out too much. And so the very qualities that could become our strengths, the ones that feel natural, vibrant, alive, get tucked away into the shadow. It's like pressing mute on the most authentic parts of yourself just to avoid disapproval. There's another layer too, the fear of responsibility. Think about it. If you step into your full ability, the world will expect more of you. If you admit to yourself that you could lead, create, or achieve at a higher level, then suddenly the excuse "I can't" no longer works. Many of us unconsciously avoid our strengths because they threaten to disrupt the familiar comfort of our current identity. In this sense, fearing your potential is not laziness. It's self-protection. It feels safer to stay where you are than to risk becoming someone new. But here's the paradox. By burying our light, we create the very suffering we're trying to avoid. When you hide your capacity for creativity, you feel restless and unfulfilled. When you suppress your courage, anxiety fills the gap. When you mute your desire to connect or lead, loneliness and stagnation creep in. It's not that the shadow disappears. It simply leaks into your life in distorted ways, through frustration, envy, procrastination, or even physical stress. The very energy we try to repress ends up haunting us in disguised forms. So what exactly is the shadow? Jung described it as the unconscious counterpart to our conscious personality. If the ego is the mask we wear in society, the shadow is everything that mask leaves out. That includes the impulses we reject, anger, envy, selfishness, but also the strengths we fear, ambition, passion, power. The shadow is like a psychological basement. Some of what's stored there is ugly, but some of it is gold. Jung warned that the greatest treasures of the self are buried in the places we least want to look. That's why meeting your shadow is both frightening and liberating. To make this more concrete, imagine you're watching a movie. The hero's journey always involves facing some kind of hidden adversary. Sometimes it's an external villain, but often the real battle is internal. The moment when the hero must confront their own darkness, doubt, or hidden potential. That's what the shadow represents. It's the part of you that whispers, "You could be more, but are you ready to handle it?" The question is whether you choose to fight it, ignore it, or integrate it. Let's ground this in everyday life. Think of envy. On the surface, envy seems like a negative emotion, resenting what someone else has. But Jungians would say envy is a clue. It points to a part of your shadow, a capacity you desire but have not yet owned in yourself. When you envy someone's confidence, it means confidence is waiting to be developed inside you. When you envy someone's freedom, it signals your own longing for freedom. Envy is the shadow knocking on the door saying, "This belongs to you too if only you're willing to claim it." Or take procrastination. Often we think we procrastinate because we're lazy or unmotivated. But sometimes we procrastinate precisely because the task matters too much. We fear completing it because completing it would confirm our ability, and with that ability comes expectation. In other words, procrastination can be a defense against our own potential. The shadow doesn't just hold weakness, it also holds power, and power can feel dangerous. So how do you begin to meet your shadow without being overwhelmed? The first step is awareness. Notice where you overreact. Do you feel unusually irritated by someone's boldness? Do you dismiss your own ideas before even testing them? These reactions are signposts pointing to the shadow. The second step is curiosity. Instead of shaming yourself for these feelings, ask, what is this reaction hiding? What quality in me am I unwilling to see? One simple exercise you can try is the mirror list. Take a sheet of paper and write down 3 qualities you most admire in others and 3 qualities you most dislike. Then, for each one, ask, how might this live in me? If you admire someone's creativity, where is your own creativity waiting to be expressed? If you dislike someone's arrogance, could it be a distorted version of your own unclaimed confidence? The goal is not to judge, but to recognize. The shadow becomes less frightening once you name it. Another powerful technique is journaling dialogue. Imagine the part of you that holds back, that fears your own strength. Give it a voice on paper. Let it tell you why it hides. You may be surprised to find that it's not cruel, it's protective. It says, I keep you small because I don't want you to be hurt. Once you hear that voice, you can respond. You can say, I understand you're trying to protect me, but I'm ready to take small steps forward. In this way, integration begins not with violence against the shadow, but with compassion. Integration also means giving yourself permission to test your hidden strengths in small, safe ways. If you suspect your shadow hides ambition, try taking on a small project where you lead. If your shadow hides creativity, experiment with a hobby without pressure. Each step signals to your psyche that it's safe to express more of who you are. Over time, the shadow shifts from enemy to ally. Instead of sabotaging you, it begins to guide you toward wholeness. The philosopher Marianne Williamson captured this beautifully when she wrote, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. Whether or not you agree with every word, the essence holds true. Many of us are more afraid of our own greatness than of failure. Because greatness requires change. It demands responsibility. It asks us to become visible, and visibility feels vulnerable. But here's the secret. Vulnerability is the path to freedom. By facing your shadow, you don't become perfect. You become real. You stop wasting energy pretending to be smaller than you are. You reclaim the parts of yourself you once exiled. And in that reclamation, you find both authenticity and strength. The shadow doesn't vanish. It becomes integrated, a source of creativity, vitality, and courage. The journey is not easy, but it is essential. Because if you never open the treasure chest of your shadow, you will always feel like something is missing. But once you dare to look inside, you discover that what you feared most was not darkness, but light. And that light, once embraced, can illuminate not only your path, but the lives of those around you. When you begin to integrate your shadow, something remarkable happens. The qualities you once feared start to feel like resources rather than threats. Let's say you've always dismissed yourself as not a leader. Yet deep down, you feel flashes of frustration when others take charge in ways you wouldn't. By exploring that frustration, you realize it hides your own potential for leadership. Maybe you don't have to become a CEO overnight, but you can practice leading a small group, offering direction, or even taking responsibility in your family dynamics. Each small step allows that hidden capacity to surface without overwhelming you. This is how you move from repression to integration, not by forcing a complete transformation at once, but by gradually reclaiming the pieces of yourself that you once exiled. One of the most common barriers you'll face is the voice of self-doubt. It will whisper things like, "You're not ready," or "Who do you think you are to step into that role?" It's important to understand that this voice is not proof of your weakness. It is evidence of your shadow. It is the part of you that believes staying small equals staying safe. Recognizing this helps you respond with compassion rather than defeat. You might say to yourself, "I hear the fear, but I also see the opportunity. I can take one small step without needing to have it all figured out." This shift in mindset changes everything. You stop treating fear as a stop sign and start treating it as a signal that you're approaching something meaningful. Another practical way to work with your shadow is through feedback from others. Often people around us see qualities we don't. Maybe a colleague compliments your creativity, but you brush it off as luck. Maybe a friend insists you're inspiring, but you insist you're just ordinary. These moments are not accidents, they are mirrors. When someone reflects back a positive quality you struggle to accept, that is often your shadow speaking through them. Instead of dismissing it, try to sit with it. Ask yourself, what if this is true? What if I really do have this quality, even if I haven't fully expressed it yet? Letting yourself imagine the possibility is the first step to integration. There is also a deeply philosophical layer to this. Jung believed that the shadow is essential for wholeness. You cannot become a complete person by polishing only the parts you like. True growth comes from embracing contradictions, your fear and your courage, your flaws and your talents, your weakness and your strength. To live authentically means to stop pretending that only half of you is real. Wholeness is not about perfection. It is about honesty, the honesty of looking at yourself in full and saying, "This is me, and all of me is allowed to exist." To illustrate this, consider the metaphor of a garden. If you only tend to one kind of plant and ignore the rest, your garden becomes imbalanced and weak. But if you care for the wildflowers, the strong trees, and even the weeds, you create an ecosystem that is alive and resilient. Your psyche works the same way. By caring for every part of yourself, including the ones you've neglected, you build resilience and authenticity. The parts you once tried to suppress become sources of creativity, empathy, and even wisdom. Now you might wonder, how do you know when you're truly integrating your shadow? One sign is that you feel less triggered by others. Instead of resenting someone else's confidence, you feel inspired by it. Instead of feeling jealous of someone's freedom, you start taking steps toward your own. Another sign is that you start feeling more aligned, as though your actions match your inner truth. Life feels less like a performance and more like an honest expression of who you are. It's important to note that integration doesn't mean indulging every impulse. It doesn't mean that if you discover anger in your shadow, you should unleash it recklessly. Integration means acknowledging that anger exists, understanding what it's trying to protect, and then channeling its energy in constructive ways, like setting boundaries or fueling social change. The same goes for ambition, passion, or confidence. Once you stop pretending they don't exist, you can direct them toward purposes that genuinely matter to you. There is also a liberating truth here. Your shadow is not static. As you grow, new aspects of it emerge. This means that the work of integration is never finished. But that's not a burden. It's an invitation. Each stage of life gives you new chances to reclaim pieces of yourself you didn't know were missing. And with each piece you reclaim, you move closer to living as a whole, authentic human being. To bring this down to practice, here are 3 exercises you can try. First, the spotlight test. Think of a time when you were given recognition or attention and felt uncomfortable, even though it was positive. Write down what made you uncomfortable. Was it fear of being seen as arrogant? Was it the worry that you couldn't sustain that level of success? That discomfort often reveals a part of your shadow, your hidden strength waiting to be claimed. Second, the role reversal exercise. Take someone you admire and imagine living a day in their skin. How would it feel to act with their confidence or creativity? Then ask yourself, what small action can I take today that mirrors this quality in my own life? By practicing in micro steps, you gradually integrate the qualities you've projected onto others. Third, the permission statement. Write down one thing you secretly long to do but have held back from out of fear, whether it's pursuing art, speaking up, or changing careers. Then write a statement. I give myself permission to explore this part of me. Read it aloud each morning for a week. This simple ritual can unlock the psychological barrier that keeps your strength trapped in the shadow. As you practice these exercises, remember that the goal is not to become someone else, but to become more of who you already are. Integration is not about changing your essence, it's about reclaiming it. It's about looking at yourself honestly and saying, I no longer need to hide. So why do we fear our own possibilities? Because possibility is power, and power changes everything. It changes how others see us. It changes how we see ourselves. It asks us to step out of the comfortable script and into the unknown. That's terrifying, yes. But it's also the doorway to freedom. The shadow isn't an enemy, it's a guide. It is the keeper of the gold you've been too afraid to touch. And the moment you dare to open that treasure chest, you begin to live not as a fragment of yourself, but as a whole integrated being. If this idea resonated with you, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who might also be hiding their own strength, and subscribe to Mind Unlocked. Here, we explore the deepest layers of psychology and philosophy, giving you not just insights but practical tools to unlock your mind and live with greater clarity, courage, and authenticity. This is your toolkit for better thinking, and the journey continues with every video we create together.